you are a very most sought after dermatologist in our country. You're an entrepreneur, content creator, author. Have you ever thought this person needs therapy, not skincare? What is the right sunscreen for me? What does collagen do? When does it start degrading? And when should one get on to collagen supplements, if at all they should? Can you help us read a sunscreen label? Okay. This is my stationery box. Oh, just let me see that.
I wonder if I wouldn't have done work in sunscreens if it had not been for one time that we consultants in the clinic actually tested our blood.
So you're saying 2 to 3 hours of reapplication is not necessary?
Not required at this point.
Is there any closing statement?
Doc, actually we're back to the trivia round again. So we're going to ask both of you some questions.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Yours Holistically. So today's guest needs no introduction. She's one of the India's most accomplished dermatologists. She's an entrepreneur, founder of Chosen, a skincare brand that's very successful, author, and if you ask me, she's a woman of real substance and someone I look up to. So she's Dr. Renita Rajan, and in this episode, we are going to be deep diving into sunscreens and everything you need to know about sunscreens. Are sunscreens safe? Do sunscreen cause cancer? Are they harmful? Are they doing more harm than good? Etc, etc, etc. So everything about sunscreens you're going to get out of this episode. We'll also be touching upon lasers in treating pigmentation concerns in skin of color and much more. And of course, we're not going to let go of her without putting her on the hot spot of asking yes or no, what's in your bag segments. So keep watching for a super informative and interesting session added with a little bit of fun. So welcome, Dr. Renita. I'm very excited to have you here and thank you so much for doing this for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priyanka. It's a pleasure always to meet and chat with you. I'm so happy that you are doing this at a larger platform, reaching out to more people. So power to you.
Thank you so much. And doctors like you who come on to this platform help me reach more people by giving more authentic, wonderful content. Thank you.
Happy to contribute.
Yeah. So Doc, firstly, we know you. I mean, you wear many hats, right? You are a very most sought after dermatologist in our country. You're an entrepreneur, content creator, author. That's a lot of hats to wear. So in this segment, I want to know what makes you truly and wholly you. So this segment is called 360 degree of you,
okay,
wherein we want to know the quirky side or something that we've not seen, the sides that we've not seen of you in this segment. So please tell us what makes you wholly you.
I think most of the stuff that we, be it writing about skin or my favorite pastime is again reading stuff, and the entrepreneurship aspect also came out to be in the same circle of competence. So I think I'm a very there's a very narrow aspect to me. So whatever I do has been around only this core circle of competence. So the my pastimes are again reading, and my people that I hang out are in the same fraternity. So I don't think I have anything else outside of this circle to be, say, okay, here is what drives me. I think being in the field and being still being able to enjoy small things about dermatology. Recently, we were reading up the cell-to-cell talk in melasma, and that gives us a high. So
what I think a high to have.
I know. We were like, okay, there's a thing to being nerds, and there's a thing to being, nerds that totally enjoy themselves with this. Or if it's something like a formulation comes together, it's a different texture. I think all of my fun is also in this domain. So I really don't have much else going on outside of this. So even though it looks like a lot of hats, it's just the core is very narrow.
I think it's very interesting, right? When your passion meets your career or work. I think it's truly a blissful journey wherein you're working towards your passion and it brings you true joy. I just look at you and see the amount of joy you're having just saying about your work and passion. It's truly inspiring. So that's what I'm saying. If I get stuck during this podcast, it's all because of you. I tell you also that I always have this fangirl moment whenever I meet you, and I'm like, yeah, or tell me more. I'm all yours. Yeah.
The admiration is fairly mutual. I see you. I see you pushing yourself a lot. I see you doing so much out there, and I really hope that at someday all of the stuff that you do, I really hope someday you get to appreciate yourself for it.
Maybe someday.
someday.
Thank you.
Where you feel like, okay, maybe I have done enough.
Enough.
I don't know if you're the kind of person to do that, but at someday if that gets there, I would that will be enjoyable.
I know. Doc, you said, thank you. See, this is what I'm telling you. I get stuck. I just want to keep listening to you. So thank you, Doc. But you said the core is reading, right? So can you give 1 or 2 tips for people who wants to get on to reading but are not able to do it effectively and consistently?
Okay. So reading was kind of like the thing to do in my period. When we were growing up, there was hardly much else outside of books to occupy if you didn't have a gang to hang out with. Nowadays, I think there's a lot of information coming in from everywhere. So maybe I wouldn't put it out saying like this is the best habit. It works for me. There are people that get their ideas from bouncing them off to other people. There are people that discuss something and then and an idea gets born. And there are people that can listen to a podcast and get their aha moment. So I would say this is what was available for us back then. And for me, I am generally somebody that's very rote, very habit oriented. Like I have found my peace in reading, and then it's easy for me to understand, articulate basis what I read, what I write. But this could be different things to different people. People get so inspired watching podcasts.
Yes.
People get so inspired looking at nature. So the inspiration could be from anywhere. Just the space or just the thought that maybe we make that space to be inspired a little, because we have so much going on, so much to catch up with, so many things on our to-do list. Sometimes I panic if I forget what's next on my to-do list. So sometimes I'm supposed to be doing something right now. I'm not supposed to be, and I'm not supposed to be free. So if it is not that, if people find what is their method of inspiration, it could be anything. It could be, writing. It could be hanging out, or it could be deep work in your domain, or travel. So I just hope that whatever is your way to get inspired, maybe people recognize that. It came to me easy that I am most myself when I read. I'm happiest when I read. Outside of playing with my little one, I feel like reading satisfies me at so many levels. So maybe if somebody finds that this is what satisfies me, this is what empowers me, I think that's good enough. It doesn't have to be reading. But if it is reading, I can give you a list of books.
So, but do you think there's a difference now? A lot of people are switching from books to Kindles and online reading. Do you think there's a difference from reading books to online? Do you feel
the physical book?
Yes.
Physical
books to ebooks.
Yeah. So anytime, any day, I think it's way better to sit with the physical book if it's possible. The only thing that makes stuff better when you carry a Kindle around, it's probably because you really don't carry so many copies around. Sometimes you're reading something and if you need to carry the book around. That's the only advantage. But if you're trying to read on the Kindle app on the phone, I would strongly discourage it. It never happens. You want to read, but then an idea jumps at you and it's like, okay, let me put this across to my team and say, okay, is this doable, guys? Should we do this? And by the time you come back, you're no longer with the book. So what happens is the thinking process gets very fragmented. I am so cross with myself for taking so much time to think something through. But thinking needs time.
True.
We try to compress our thinking into, come up with the answer immediately.
And next task.
React, finish and get on with it. But sometimes if you really want a good idea, you need to have that time. There is, I think it's the machines around us or the AI around us that says like, okay, if you want to compress this article in 15 seconds, I can do it for you. Somehow we put that expectation onto ourselves saying like, okay, I should skim this article through in 15 seconds. We could skim. but there will be no deep learning. There will be no deep neuronal connections. And when you want to apply it, you're like, I read this somewhere.
True.
It made sense. Or you get a very superficial, wrong impression, which typically happens on WhatsApp University, right? Like you're given, or even on Instagram, you're given a hook that's like, okay, do not use this because. And then sometimes you do not finish the sentence.
True.
Somebody's like, okay, this is incoming stitch, but we just don't have the time. There's so much cognitive pressure on us.
Yeah.
That I think gets a lot reduced when you read a book. I even read a book upside down if I really want to slow down. Yeah, you really slow down, because sometimes even when reading books, my behavior is to be like, okay, how many pages? You know, like how we think in MD. Okay, how big is this chapter?
Yeah.
Which chapter will I finish first? So 20 pages, okay, you come on first. 40 pages tomorrow. So that behavior is there. So it's also about, we learn speed reading techniques in MBBS because we want to finish syllabus.
Yeah.
So, but now that when I want to savor something, or if I really want to think something through, it's an old technique. I learned this in school or college, but you flip the book, you read it upside down. Helps.
Wonderful. So we went off the topic and I got this topic because this is something that was very important to come from you. Okay, so quick questions on this segment. If your closest friend or a family person has to sum you up in 3 words, what would they be?
Restless. Yes.
You don't look like that, but okay, we'll take it.
Curious. And maybe persistent. Or if it was somebody that's really close, they would not call me persistent. They would say stubborn.
Stubborn. Softer way of putting it. But I think, yeah, except for restless, I think I can relate to that also. Maybe you look very calm on the outside, but there's a lot going on. And that's also how you're able to juggle so many roles.
Yeah. I'm fairly fidgety. I love the pillow. I'm like, this is like a comfort pillow. And otherwise, I'm fairly fidgety. This helps.
So can you please take us through a daily routine?
Okay. I'll start with the night, because that's kind of sets
the
how
tone
I wake
for the
up.
next day.
Yeah. I usually pass out anywhere between 8:45 to 9:15.
Yeah.
I'm out. Some days I'm up till about 10, because if the little one has some work at school, or if she's just downloading the day, just talking about something, or if I'm obsessed with solving something that just won't get solved between 9 and 10 p.m. Like I want to close it and tie it aside, but it's not going to happen. But sometimes I obsess over it. But by 10, it's impossible for me to stay awake after that, or be usefully communicative after that. Then last year I used to wake up at 4:30. This year I've brought it down to 5, because I really want to do that 7 hours at least, seven and a half hours at least. I used to wear a Whoop to time. I got up after a while.
Why? Any reason?
I felt it wasn't picking up my sleep as much as I thought it would, because I had the craziest nightmares, and it was like, you have restful sleep. So maybe I needed more time on it. So I'm still trying to train my Whoop. I'm off it for a while, so I will get on after some time, is the thought. I'm just trying different things. I wore Whoop for most of the last 6 months, but I'm off it for
just started.
Yeah.
So far it's tracking well. I think
it did well for the initial 3 months. I was obsessed, and I was also checking Whoop over and over. So then I thought, okay, maybe a couple of months off and see how we do, and then decide. When I was traveling, I was not able to sync it as well, so I felt it was a little strain. Somebody said that you will grow out of the Whoop in 6 months, and I said like, I love it.
And then you grew out. Let me see. 2 months into this.
Yeah. Let's see how that goes. Yeah. So then the morning is 5:30. And 5 o'clock I'm up. I usually try to read something which is in relation to whatever work there is. It's also the time that I do emails. Typically people say don't do your emails in the morning, but my emails trigger a lot of work downstream, and people are dependent on me for the answers. So I ask my team to time it, to schedule, send it between 5 and 6. So I'm usually giving them the answers for the day. And by about 6:45, 6:30 is school run. So then I hang around and see if I can contribute. She's pretty self-sufficient.
Wonderful.
There's hardly maybe about 15 minutes of hanging around that I got to do. And we have a bye-bye ritual, so that we talk a little and then say, I love you more, I love you. That happens, and then she's out. And after that, I have like a good hour to myself. I catch up on work, and I schedule myself what I have to. I mostly am in a reactive or responsive mode in that. So I'm just responding to people, seeing what can be done. Not a lot of creative work there. Then by about 9 off to clinic. 2 days are consultation days, 2 days are completely audit days, and 2 days are in R&D. So, and some part of the day is also admin. So that's typically how the day goes.
So the days are structured, like which day is for what?
Yeah. And appointments are well structured. I'm able to sometimes, if I have somebody that's got a complicated problem or something, I'm able to read up. We are able to prepare, and then when we go into the consultation, we have like 2-3 options saying like, okay, we've thought of these things for you. So it's fairly well controlled over there. And by around, on consultation days, I finish by about 6 o'clock. So that's fairly easy for me to, more or less be predictable on those days. The other days, it may extend till about 7:30. In that case, I try to eat early, like 5:30 to 6. I somehow try to finish dinner. If not, then it's 7:30. 8 to 9 is workouts 3 days a week, and I am out.
3 days a week. So you have a trainer, or you work out?
I have a trainer.
What are your goals when you say workout? Why are you working out? Do you have any goal?
I'm 44, perimenopausal, and there are lots of aches and pains that happen. So if you don't work out, and for the kind of running around that we do, I'm doing it mostly from a rehab point of view. I'm also, I have injuries, and mostly from a rehab point of view. Not so. I would love to have more aesthetics, and I think lifting gives that kind of your deltoids look nice and all of those things.
Hot bod.
Hot, okay. Decent.
But it's very important for us to maintain the muscle tone as we grow older, and I think strength training is something that will actually help you. No matter how much of protein, collagen, whatever you eat, if you don't strength train, I think the musculoskeletal strength is not going to
absolutely with you on this. I think in the order, it's probably sleep, then strength train, then diet, and then skincare.
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about longevity, I think the order is
that is the list. That is the order. Correct.
Yeah. So and then the rest, I think.
Yeah, I think 8 to 9, and then the other days that I'm free, I have to post on Instagram. Then I hope many days I manage to do that, but before I leave work, so I don't bring it home. But then sometimes I'm on Instagram between that 7:30 to 9, and that's pretty much it. I try my best to not post more than twice a week, and that's pretty much it. Those days, again, I'm mostly house stuff, moseying around. That's about it.
But I think you're very consistent with your Q&A sessions that you post, and every time I read, I just like... you give such elaborate answers on your Q&A. I think this should go as a reel. Why is this information vanishing or disappearing in 24 hours? This has to go up as a reel. You give so much good information on your stories. Do you type it out on your phone, or do you it requires a lot of patience? For me, like after 2 to 3 sentences to reply, because they ask such questions also which requires lengthy answers, and I should really it's very commendable that you're doing that very consistently for many years on your stories, and most of them are gems that should be going on your reels and not as stories. Please put them up as reels.
I also feel that when you're answering in stories, you're answering in a context. So then earlier we could simply, we could just take a snapshot and then put it out on a post, and then we would not have to explain the context so much. Instagram came up like that. I mean, I came onto Instagram because some other clinic advertised with my photograph that I was consulting there. I came up on Instagram to say like, okay, I am she, I am here. So that's pretty much my entry. And back then it used to be like you could take a picture and say, okay, hydrate well, of water. I mean, we could do so many things. But right now, our reels, our content has to have context.
Yes.
It could be misunderstood. It could be misused. It could be wrongly attributed. So I feel fairly nervous about the reels not being very spontaneous. So for me, Q&A is spontaneity. Sometimes it's just that some of the Q&As are about like, how was your day? So it's just helps me connect. I really feel I really love Q&A on Instagram, and it helps me connect with people. And I think I know quite a number of them. So I'm also DMing saying like, okay, I'm in Connect, because these are people we met during COVID online
True.
when everybody was online a lot more. So I feel reels and posts are mostly it's a one-way communication. For me, Q&A is
It's two-way.
two-way. So
And I think most of them who came on during the COVID time, we've somehow sort of built like a personal relationship with
community.
them. They're there with you.
Yeah.
They keep
Yeah.
like checking on you. Sometimes you don't post, are you
Are you
okay?
okay?
That's so sweet. Like you feel like and sometimes now when you meet doctors also, you feel like you know them for a very long time, or you're friends, because that's how Instagram is connecting people.
Yeah.
But also Instagram is not as fun as it was before. Now, like you said, we have to be very calculated, careful, and it has to mean something. It's become more like a commercial way, and the relationships also are very short-lived as compared to what we built during COVID time.
True.
It was
Very
a lot
true.
more fun and organic back then.
True. Very true. I agree with you.
So, Doc, so you're balancing so much. What is your guilty pleasure when you're free?
I read.
I already have the answer.
I'm like a one-track pony. That's all I know. I'm sorry. I'm like a one-track pony. That's all I know.
Did your daughter pick this up from you? Like, is she also into
She's
reading?
into music, so she reads with a little bit of support, but not the way that I was a bookworm. My nieces read a lot. Then they grew up alongside. When I was reading, they were reading. My dad used to read a lot. Dad reads a lot still. So I think her exposure to information is mostly like she has to research on stuff. So she listens to podcasts. She listens to videos. So I think it's changed for them. The information channel has changed.
So, Doc, now the most important topic. Let's deep dive into your expertise. One is sunscreens, right? So, there's a lot of discussion, ongoing discussion from many years, that sunscreens are dangerous. Sunscreen can cause cancer. Sunscreen filters enter bloodstream and are doing more harm than good. So, let's clear it once for all. From the expert, what is your take on this?
Okay. So then we start with the history.
Yes.
So sunscreens were meant to protect against cancer. So that's very obvious because we have enough data to show causality that UVB, UVA create a lot of DNA damage, which if unrepaired can go on to cause cancer. So we see these mutations playing out. So there is a definite causality. Now are sunscreens the main tool? We say sunscreens are part of the whole sun protection armamentarium. But when we shift the whole scenario to skin of color, for us it is about photo protection in terms of preventing pigmentation, because we have a built-in sunscreen called melanin. I think at this point most dermatologists will fall in love with melanin during this time of the year.
Yes.
Because we see a lot of drama with the pigmentation, but we also see a lot of protection because of how mighty melanin is in protecting against skin cancer. Now, when sunscreens came to be, the causality was mostly around UVB. So what happened was most of the sunscreens protected against UVB, and the role of UVA in causing skin cancer came to be arrived at much, much later, by which time people were falsely protected in that thought process like, okay, I'm wearing a UV blocker, so then I will go out. Then you had the numbers increasing. And over a period of time, that has been corrected because so much more better filters are available that now protect against all of the spectrum. But this was never the focus for our skin types. Our skin types, we knew. We all know that it's pigmentation that we are protecting against.
Yes.
So this whole apply every 2 to 3 hours, which comes from a very simple, basic study. It's not even like a very large study. It comes from a single observation or like a bunch of observational studies which actually said that people who wore or used sunscreen or reapplied sunscreen found themselves to be less sunburnt, primarily based on a survey among beachgoers, which is hardly the kind of rigorous medical evaluation that we actually accept.
Yes.
But that came to be, and that came to be present in almost all of the FDA guidelines thereafter. Many researchers in the last decade, not even now, have challenged. In fact, as early as the 90s, they say that there's published data to say that sunscreens last longer on human skin. But the lobby is also that you use more sunscreen. Yes. That's also there because there's also insurance tied to it, saying like, oh, X number of malignancies prevented per year. But we never have this hard and fast for sunscreens. And because the story was about skin cancer, I think as in India and other Asian countries where we have more pigment adapted, that 2 to 3 hours also became our mantra. So when we inherited sunscreens, maybe 15 years, 20 years ago, we said apply every 2 to 3 hours, because we understood that sunscreens work on the skin only for 2 to 3 hours. But in light of the decade long incoming data on how sunscreens last much longer, like we've done 8-hour water immersion tests, 10-hour water immersion tests, and the SPF drops maybe from an 80 to a 40 at best. And because 30 plus is good enough for us, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. But sunscreen testing has not evolved to pick this up. Right. They are only at, at maximum you can check for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's where they are. They haven't evolved to check presence of sunscreen on skin for very long hours in skin of color, because there's no SPF testing that includes the darker skin types at all. Because SPF testing needs to look at the endpoint of erythema, and we don't have redness in our skin. So then we are conveniently excluded from all major in vivo testing. There are more complicated, I wouldn't say complicated, they're more time consuming and not yet completely standardized tests that can look at what we call as biological endpoints. Those will come in, and then it makes sense to say that sunscreens are tested in this particular way for skin of color, and therefore you may not have to reapply. Right now we have UV camera tests which have shown, many researchers have shown toweling, bathing, all of those things also people have shown. So at this point I feel like long wear sunscreens are very much a reality and here to stay, because this is important to understanding why they get absorbed. So if you are reapplying every 2 to 3 hours, and if it is a lipophilic, fat-loving benzophenone molecule, it will go in because you're topping it up. So then the quantum that you apply, maybe 1.5 ml for the face, 4 times is 6 ml for the face. So then you are actually exposing yourself to more, and these are very nice lipid-based molecules which are so easily absorbable. So what happens is, if you look at the compartment on the skin, in the skin and onwards into the bloodstream. So you apply a lot of product on the skin, moves within the skin, right? Now, because it's able to move into the bloodstream, the concentration falls here. So, and when you apply the next time, it keeps moving. So there is a directional movement into the bloodstream, which is why you find benzophenone in pretty much every body fluid. Right. From urine to semen to breast milk, it's pretty much in every body fluid, because there's a constant movement. And every time that we tell them reapply, in terms of the 2 to 3 hours with the smaller molecules, this is a problem. So the absorption comes in from the lipophilicity. So now we have agents like zinc, which are not known to enter the viable epidermis. So that helps. And now we work with something called non-nano zinc, which is structurally making the skin, the zinc a little bulked up. So then it becomes that much more difficult to penetrate. So I think this is an evolving science. So people are going to take one time point and say, sun causes cancer, sunscreens cause cancer, sunscreens get absorbed, all sunscreens are bad. You cannot do a black and white in this. This is 100% grey. Yes. Like with everything in medicine, the beauty is for us to be able to say, okay, here is how we have evolved, here is how we will move forward. I mean, I think people worked on the abacus once, and now you have advanced processors, and now you have AI. And that evolution is understood as natural. So if it were for sunscreens, from where we were doing one spectrum to now go broad spectrum, there's a lot that's evolved to be very safe for human use. And because you use it so less, then you put out so less into the environment, and therefore, say for example, 6 ml going out into the environment through the body or off the skin when you bathe in the sea. The quantum that goes out into the environment is a lot. Yeah. But if you're going to bring that down to 1.5 ml, right away you are cutting down about 75% of what goes in. So the idea would be to try and see, take the principle of that, yes, definitely we need sun protection. Yes. So many pigmentary conditions. And people think, when we talk about pigmentation, people think that we're talking about a tan. Yes. Tan is not a disease. Yes. When we see lichen planus, that is the least of our problems. Exactly. Actually. When we see lichen planus pigmentosis, we're like, now what do we do? Yes. Right? That is always the stress of having to deliver results in a condition which is so challenging for the person that goes through it. Many of them have had great skin and then they end up with something like this, and it brings down quality of life so much, and it's so difficult for them. And when we're talking about pigmentation there, that is the person who actually needs to reapply sunscreen.
That's true.
And that's the person who needs to live in complete sun protection. So people need to understand that we're not talking about sun protection as black or white. It is grey, and they need to understand the nuances of how it is to be used for skin of color, which is why it's a lot of education. It's a lot of education. It's not a moisturizer. It's not something that you slap on and say, okay, you feel more moisturized, that's about it. It's not a lipstick that we put on and say, see the color, that's about it. Sunscreen, I feel, is a difficult living person who needs to be
Complex
tamed.
to understand.
Yes, it's a temperamental pet. It'll give you value if you know how to handle it.
Yes, true. So the thing is with sunscreens is, especially with skin of color, we're talking more specifically about us Indians, is that we're not worried about cancers as much. We're more worried about the aesthetic part of our skin. So when we talk about as simple thing as tanning to conditions like melasma, or like we've seen very fair people, for example, also not using sunscreen and in their late 40s or 50s having a lot of pigmentary conditions like solar lentigens. So this is more of aesthetic way of protecting your skin, and of course at a deeper level also eventually. So Doc, what is the mistake? So first thing is, do you think we are overselling sunscreens in India?
I'll take a super gray area here. So I say no sunscreen for children.
Yes.
Unless they are out on vacations. And my advice on using sunscreen is use it for areas that can't be covered by clothing. And definitely use it if you are a higher skin type, because the amount of pigmentary conditions that we see is rising. And there are contributions coming in from visible light. There are a lot of contribution coming in from infrared as well. So for me, sunscreen, there's no other choice than sunscreen to protect that area which is exposed to light. So that's for me something that's as important as toothpaste. So that's the level of where it is. But for people that say like, okay, you've got to apply sunscreen all over the body, make it a habit for your children.
No, not really.
Not yet.
So first thing is choose it wisely. I mean, use it wisely first. Choosing will come to it later, but first is use it wisely. So you're saying 2 to 3 hours of reapplication is not necessary for everybody.
At this point.
So if you are somebody who has a long day out in the open, then do you recommend using it once in 2 to 3 hours?
I would say you could use it say once in every 4 to 6 hours, because the studies plus whatever personally we've worked with cosmetic chemistry as well, it's a lot in the formulation. So when we wear makeup in the morning and then we go wipe it off at night, we still have the tinge of makeup. So the same thing happens when I wear a tinted sunscreen.
That's a good analogy,
And then you actually see the product on the skin. So if it is formulated to be long wear, it has to be specifically formulated to be long wear, because it is possible to get washed off fairly easily. If formulated to be long wear, then your sunscreen does stay on the skin. Yes.
So we are talking now with the new age filters, they are more photo stable. So why is this concept of every 2 to 3 hours has come? Because the filters are photo degradable.
Once upon a time it used to be that. Once upon a time it used to be completely in the UVB spectrum. Once upon a time it also used to be that back then we had only avobenzone for UVA.
Yes.
Notoriously photo
unstable.
And there's a lot of interactions between filters. So sometimes when we learned, we used to say a bit of this, a bit of that, like to be able to bring in the spectrum.
Broad spectrum.
And then to also try and, kind of have as many filters as possible. It's not true that way. When you add, there is documented data that when you add the wrong kind of filter, which requires a different pH as compared to a filter that requires a completely different pH, both of them are performing in a substandard way, or both of them outright antagonize each other, or in this process they quench a little, so that your antioxidant reserve comes down, so you end up becoming a pro-oxidant mixture. There's a lot to this, but maybe to go back to your question of are we overselling sunscreen, I wouldn't say that at all, because I think it's, as like I said, for me it's just like toothpaste or body wash, stuff that we do on a daily basis for a fair enough period of time, or for the long term. I wouldn't even say fair enough, stuff that we do for the long term. But if it is the wrong kind of product, then
is the problem.
There is the problem. So it's evolved a lot, but to be able to, and I wouldn't have done this much thinking about sunscreens if I were not in cosmetic chemistry.
Right. Absolutely.
I would have done that bit of knowledge that I have from that last volume in Rook. And maybe
which was very minimal.
Very minimal, the
Very
bare
minimum,
minimum,
yeah.
where our focus was mostly disease based. But then we realized that the disease process is in less than 1% of the population. Most of them are about wellness and skin health, and there's a lot of interest that people want to look after themselves. So people want to learn to look after themselves. Now, when we work out, the trainer does give us some pointers, but then we also want to know, okay, what are you doing? What will this do for me? That is a good ask. That's a fair ask.
We should ask now.
Yeah. And we welcome such questions. So then sunscreen is typically there where if people understand it right, with the newer formulations, it can be made to be very comfortable. And because I'm a pigmentation referral clinic and pigmentation success rate is not the same as acne success rates, then you really want to fail less.
Yes.
I wouldn't even say you would never want to, you'd want to never fail. I mean, I would love that.
With
but I just want to fail a little
lesser.
year after year. So that's why sunscreens for me are
non-negotiable.
Yeah, non-negotiable.
So we are not overselling sunscreens.
Nope.
You need to be, you don't have to be applying it every 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
Once in 4 to 6 hours is enough, especially now that we have new age filters that are less photo unstable.
This formulation dependent.
Dependent. So can you help us read a sunscreen label? So now there is a lot of debate on certain ingredients not to be used. So why should we even have that? So I feel like we are putting a lot of dangers into our body, I would say, in terms of microplastic consumption, antibiotics, all of these things which we were not even realizing we are putting in our system already. So why do we want to put anything that is even remotely a threat? Yeah. So with that sense, we say, okay, do not use these ingredients, but these are also the ingredients that is adding to that easy spreadability, no white cast, the dewy feelings, and all of that is also coming from these filters. We all know that zinc oxide is one of the safest filters, but we also know that it is what is causing that white cast which we don't want. So how do I choose my sunscreen to make it safe and effective, but also giving me a good cosmetic appeal?
Okay.
Help me read the label.
Okay. So if you were to look at the basics, we need to have a certain UV APF. I would prioritize this over SPF because this is what we really need. I would also look for anything that talks about visible light protection because many conditions, many pigmentation conditions now have a strong input from visible light. So the UV zone is fairly small. The visible light spectrum is almost 400 to 700, it's like larger. And then you have like the whole spectrum all the way up to the infrared. Which is the spectrum is larger. So then your oxidation potential that comes in from all of this is size-wise much more than what UV alone contributes. UV is the most damaging, most powerful in terms of the free radical generation, or even at this point, the most studied. True. We still are studying about visible light. Those are just making their debut in the last decade, so to speak, just now as we speak. So for me, that the protection, the metric starts from UVA. It has to be PA4+. For our skin type, for skin of color, it has to start from PA4+. And of course, you have this nice number called the critical wavelength. It made its debut again like within the last decade. It should be more than 370 nanometers. So why do we say more than 370? Because you're looking at 400 to 450, which is the HEVL spectrum, which is responsible for pigmentation, definitely. Is because most of the equipment at that point were still in UVA. Yes. So you had UVA, UVB domain. The devices are still there. Year before last, they are just coming up with newer devices that can help us read better. But if you want to measure the efficacy of a sunscreen in 400 plus, we use different in vitro techniques only.
Okay.
So, but then it's possible to see that how much of a protection there is for these spectrums. So that's important. If you see visible light spectrum, great. Now, the next thing is about water resistance. So then you usually have immersion testing in vitro, or if it is the Western skin, then you also have in vivo testing for a much smaller period. So that's also a useful thing to look at. And then you look at the antioxidant profile, which can help you manage visible light and infrared. So if we want to kind of understand how do we make this so much better, we can look at the tinted sunscreens, which will anyway take you into the visible light spectrum. Right. So that's the easier way to do. Now for the filter selection. Safest happens to be zinc.
Yeah.
Titanium is again a mineral compound, but because it's present in so many other products like our makeup, and recently titanium has been implicated for its pro-oxidant potential in conditions like frontal fibrosing alopecia. Even for us, we have to be careful. Typically nano titanium.
Okay.
And nanos of these minerals are not eco-safe. I wouldn't say eco-safe, they are less eco-friendly. They are not to be had in sunscreens that are labeled as reef-safe.
Reef-safe, yeah.
No nanos
We'll
in
get to
reef-safe,
that, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So then you basically look at zinc as your primary anchor. We really do not have a lot of mineral sunscreens at
I
this
know,
point.
and which are cosmetically acceptable is the pain
Yes.
point.
That gets to the tinted sunscreens. So you have a little bit of iron oxide supporting you.
Yeah,
So that kind of
because I don't
works.
want to end up looking like a cricket player in a stadium when I'm walking on a road with zinc. That's the pain point.
Fair,
Yeah.
fair. Considering I'm wearing a non-nano mineral sunscreen at this point.
I'm saying we'll get to that. That's how have you formulated?
We'll talk. Okay,
Yeah, we'll talk.
all right.
Yeah.
So then the other thing to look at is not going for benzophenone. That's very simple.
It's now no brain. It has become that. Yeah.
Not octocrylene used to be my favorite. Because
was
it's so
mine too.
stable, so
Yeah.
stable, and it used to stabilize other filters. But octocrylene is also linked to potential PCO related symptoms in people who have a higher BMI. Even there, strength training may be a big deal because the effect was much lesser in people with optimal BMI. So maybe there is something about how even the endocrine disruption potential changes, or if you can fix it through optimizing body weight and your muscle mass. So that will still...
this ingredient is not a threat to everyone.
And of course, we have problems with octane oxide. That's also common. So I always wonder if I wouldn't have done work in sunscreens if it had not been for one time that we consultants in the clinic actually tested our blood for octane oxide levels right after the MATA study, when the FDA study.
Yeah.
And all of us who were just using it on the face had values higher than threshold. And that's when I said, okay, because up until then I was like, the best sunscreen is the sunscreen that people can use.
Yes. We were
And
all
I think,
saying that.
that is typically how it is. And we had all moved from reapplication a while ago because it was impractical. So I think we kept telling people, like, if you have to stay in for longer hours, then you reapply.
Yes.
And the reapplication, I think we started falling off that advice quite a while ago. So then when it came to be that this absorption study came in, so we were just trying to check. And at that point, I was still in denial, saying like sunscreens are so difficult to formulate. I don't even want to get in there because there's so much technology. And how do we look at it? But what I realized was that it is possible if you choose one anchor filter. And that, for me, that was zinc. Because after looking at all the spectrum,
The safest.
it covers. Even if you...
But does zinc give complete broad spectrum protection? It does?
Yeah. Zinc also has lesser white cast than titanium. I didn't have many options to choose from. So it is zinc or titanium. And titanium has more white cast than zinc. That's why we love it in makeup. Titanium brings out the color. So that's why we like it in makeup. But it's if you were to depend on titanium for protection, the amount that you have to use, and because it's predominantly UVB protection, it's quite difficult to say that you can get away without zinc for skin of color. It's zinc or avobenzone, and avobenzone was out because of this lack of stability, and avobenzone absorption problems also. So I didn't have much choice to work except to work with zinc. And within that, I think there is a lot. We have so many grades of zinc. We have the uncoated zinc, we have coated zinc, then we have stacked zinc, then we have it in all kinds of crystal structures. That in itself is a different science. It's fascinating.
I know, it's very interesting too. But then why are people not exploring zinc options a lot? Why are still chemical filters being...
It's a very temperamental molecule. You shift the pH by 0.1 this way, that way, SPF will drop from 60 to 20. You try and add... So I was thinking, okay, zinc is great, and then we will add something big molecule like polysilicon. We'll complex it. Polysilicon is huge, the hugest filter at this point. Polysilicon 15. Polysilicon will drag zinc down into UVB spectrum with it. It's like it takes you out of the heaven of sun protection into direct hell. So they are all very, I have come to characterize them as people.
Exactly, that's
the people I live with.
That's what I do with diseases also. I keep comparing. Yeah.
So you really want to not piss zinc off because you put the wrong, the wrong substrate. it'll kill the formulation. It'll decide to separate, or it'll decide to just, I will not protect you anymore, kind of a behavior. So we had close to some 700, 800 trials with zinc before we actually cracked. And at one point I thought, no, more than one point. I thought like, it's not going to work out.
I think that's why you came up with sunscreens also very late after launching Chosen.
Yeah. Almost 1.5, 2 years of, and we had to make sure that it was easy to use and compatible, because we also wanted to get into tinted later, but we also wanted to get into mom and baby, because those are the things that we write a prescription, we're like, I don't have a good mom and baby sunscreen to give you. And those are the pain points. So that's typically how it is. Sorry, I digressed. I went far away from the label.
So what are the filters that we have to look out for? Because now so much people will not understand if you say zinc of this. So just for me, for a layman to understand, if I just want to go pick up a sunscreen off the shelf. So zinc oxide
non-nano zinc works.
And other filters.
Other filters at this point would be the larger filters. Like I am a fan of bimotrozanol. We work with bimotrozanol because it's the one filter that's absorption studied by the US FDA in large usage, in large surface area usage. The others are to look out for. Others that you can enjoy would be in the bisoprolol group. There is also DHHP. The absorption is plus minus. There's Triasorb, which is really promising. So there are these larger filters which people are trying to push out into the UVA domain. There is a new filter, all of us are hoping for it. It's called the HAA299. It's waiting for the last 2-3 years. And then it comes in, we may be able to see. It's mostly in the UVA domain. But I think the one that will get the FDA nod is bimotrozanol. It's already finished the absorption studies. And that's why we decided to work with it.
So that offers protection against?
Full spectrum.
Okay, wonderful.
So now the concept it's chosen we've come to work with is we will do monofilters only. Because for interactions we do multiple studies and we'll see over a period of time, like not just for 3 months, 4 months, accelerated stability. We'll see it in real time for a few years and see if there is no interaction. Then we will actually go take that into commercial. Otherwise, we are very happy working with monofilters. What we did with bimotrozanol was to boost it with melanin to get that support for the entire spectrum. I would say bisoprolol is also quite okay, but but it may be a sensitizing agent also, but should be quite good. I think 4 or 5 filters stand out for me, the ones I mentioned.
Yes.
Those stand out for me.
But still, Doc, there are a lot of sunscreen in the market that have octocrylene and now new age filters.
Oxybenzone. I do not know why
people are
new brands are coming in with oxybenzone.
Yeah.
I can't understand.
Yeah.
And how these new brands kind of,
they think they can get away.
On oxybenzone. And how they even say things like we are endocrine disruptor free and have oxybenzone. I fail to understand that.
Yeah, it's beyond my understanding. Also, now with so much awareness, I think brands should not touch
there's
certain
no excuse
ingredients.
To do this now.
Especially now that you have new age filters available.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand 10 years back or 5 years back also is still okay.
And all of these reels that you see saying like sunscreen is dangerous, it's all based on oxybenzone
studies. And they're villainizing sunscreens, which is very sad.
Exactly.
So should I stay? Because now very few sunscreens have the ingredients that you've mentioned. So if I see a sunscreen with octocrylene or now new age filters of Tinosorb M or S, should I stay away from those sunscreens or are they still okay to be used?
The Tinosorb M
and S is totally fine.
The S is also I think those are all those are basically bimotrozanol and bisoprolol.
Okay.
So those are quite okay. Bisoc, if you have sensitive skin, post-procedure, ideally not, because it comes usually complex with decyl glucoside. So it's fairly rare to find that so low. So that's typically it. Bimotrozanol is a dream for people post-procedures and stuff. So I'm quite in love with it. But if you are looking at octocrylene, don't panic because it's also cumulative exposure.
Yeah.
I would worry less about octocrylene than I worry about oxybenzone.
Absolutely.
Because oxybenzone is there in your body washes, perfumes, hair products. It's there in everything.
Yes.
Therefore, no oxybenzone.
I want you to, talk a little bit more about this because I also just spoke about how cumulative dose is very important, and you're not getting this ingredient only from your sunscreen, which is why it's more dangerous because you're getting it through so many other beauty cosmetic products that you're daily putting on your skin and inhaling also.
Inhaling.
So can you please talk about cumulative dose? One thing. And second thing is there are a lot of topically applied ingredients that are penetrating deep into the skin and entering your bloodstream, but that it doesn't necessarily mean harm.
Exactly.
So these are the 2 points that I really want you to talk about. What about the cumulative dose, and why you don't have to panic about everything that is entering your bloodstream?
Yeah. As an organism, I'll take the second one first. As an organism, we will absorb stuff. That is how we are built. We're not exactly completely proof to all that we come in contact with. Now, which channel? What is the way that we absorb? Yes, we take a lot more in the gut, and we take a lot more in inhalation, and then of course there is also the skin, and then of course what mommies give to their babies through placenta. And these are the ways in which we are exposed to multiple things, and not everything that is detected in the blood is essentially harmful. So there are these threshold values that are set for different chemicals. So if we are well within the threshold values, because those values have been arrived at based on a lot of population data. How much population data applies to individuals? I think that is where exposome science will answer us, saying like, okay, here is the data, but here is you. Then how do you match both? That could be the exposome answer. But that said, not everything that's there in our bloodstream is essentially an indicator of doom. Not really. So why do we dislike oxybenzone so much as compared to others? Is that there's data already.
Yes.
We are not looking for fresh evidence. We've been exposed to evidence for 1.5 decades right now, and the evidence has been building up. So all of us, I don't know if you remember, we started out with oxybenzone. Slowly we moved to octocrylene because that was said to be better and larger molecule, and we slowly
also it stabilizes other filters. So we started loving it.
We started moving away, and I think that has not percolated into the general awareness as much, where general awareness is just now use sunscreen.
Yes.
And general awareness, because it's coming in at a time where people are getting distracted easily, or people are attention grabbing happens. General awareness is also moving in the wrong direction, saying like apply sunscreen on your scalp. That's sheer
seriously
dumb advice. There's just no other way to put it out there. To all of the influencers who are advocating this, I'm so sorry, but it's super duper dumb advice. There's nothing we can do about it, right? Yeah. Especially when you have hair, it just doesn't work. Right?
Maybe so, I can understand if someone is giving this advice to a bald person, protect color. Even then we say put on a hat or cover your scalp, but sunscreen on your scalp.
Exactly, and that's again for the skin cancer POV. Yeah. And people ripping sunscreen. I would love to know how that influencers doing exactly. How are they taking it off after, and what are they coping with after?
No, because they're creating a problem. No, they're saying use sunscreen on your scalp, and their next reels will be on how you can get it off your scalp. Here are your shampoos that can help get rid of that sunscreen off your scalp to prevent scalp buildup.
Yeah. So talk about a strategy. Yeah. So the second question was about like, do we really worry about these things? Now the first one about what is cumulative damage. Now, when the oxybenzone study came in, it was in 2009, a mathematical modeling study said that, you will have to use so much of oxybenzone all over your body for X amount of years to be at risk, the way that this animal study or this fish study or this, in vitro study has shown. So then we said, okay, people are blowing things out of proportion. Then the human study started coming in saying like, no, this is actually reflecting in a particular problem. And then we moved on to saying like, okay, now we have to take notice because it's at a population relatable or a human relatable level. And then more studies started coming up saying that we are not able to degrade these pollutants in the wastewater management systems, which means they are bioaccumulative. And then the studies came in saying like, now we are seeing certain filters in our food chain, which means it's coming full cycle.
Correct.
So therefore, a full circle. Therefore, I feel that cumulative risk, where you know it, for example, is there benzene in the bottled water? Yes, there is. So it makes common sense for all of us to say like, use reusable stuff at this point. We've just moved on because we've understood like, is that benzene significant enough? Because there is a permissible level of benzene. But no amount of benzene is allowable if you know it. Right. We've seen it, now we can't unsee it. So it makes sense for us to not have that risk in general. But if you were dehydrated on an airplane and if you saw a bottled water available, please drink it up by all means. So it's therein lies the sense of, I know so much, but I also have so much common sense, and I'm just going to use that to make sure that I'm exposed no more than necessary.
Great. Yeah. So it was such an informative talk, but again, like we said, and it's very technical also, so many people will not be able to understand the essence of what you're actually saying, other than people who are into our industry of formulators.
I love how you're bringing me back to topic, saying, okay, tell me these 3 pointers only.
Yes, because that is what others people will like, theek hai, but what sunscreen do I use? That is what people will ask. So quickly tell me 3 to 5 points. What is the right sunscreen for me?
Okay. If you are skin of color, you need to have broad spectrum. We are skin of color, so we need to have broad spectrum.
We need to look for. So I'm asking you to tell me the labels.
Look at the broad spectrum coverage. It should say UVA, UVB, HEVL, infrared, if possible, or at least UVA, UVB, HEVL.
Yeah,
that much. Then look for SPF at least 30 plus. Then look for PA 4+.
Yes.
And look for critical wavelength number, more than 370 nanometers.
But I don't think most sunscreens do mention it. That's the problem here, especially in Indian formulated sunscreens. The regulations are not so strict. We don't see critical wavelength being mentioned. But if it's mentioned, please do look for it.
Well and good. And then you look for water resistance.
Filters. Please tell me the filters.
And finally, look to avoid oxybenzone, octocrylene, octinoxate as your primary sunscreen. Yeah. That's enough for now.
But if you do have octocrylene in your sunscreen, which you really love and you think has helped you, reduce the use of it.
Use it as less as possible.
Yeah. Probably restrict it to events where you think your sunscreen should not come in the way of your makeup.
Exactly.
Restrict it to that use. And rest of the times use primarily, and the filters have to be used.
Filters to be used typically at this point are mineral filters, of which zinc is what is specific for our skin of color, so we can stay there.
Safe chemical filters.
Bisoprolol, bimotrozanol.
But what is seen on the label easily, like Tinosorb? Because that is what is mentioned.
Tinosorb is a brand name. Then you have there is something called Pass Out Shield. There is also there'll be lots of brand names. Tinosorb is a brand name.
Okay.
So that's why we stay with this is bimotrozanol is the USAN name, the USAN name. So then that's why I use that. Yeah.
Understood. So now we don't anymore say a
maybe
sunscreen.
We could put the other names that they will see on the ingredients as in the caption. Or
We'll put it in the caption.
And maybe if it is possible, I can also direct them, or you can also suggest. We have a sunscreen ingredient checker up on Chosen, but the
Please
same
do
confusion.
That. We will add that link.
We can just put a link saying that here is how.
I'll note it down. So we'll add the link.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many trade names. It's just to see what is your sunscreen, what are the filters in the sunscreen, and what do they actually mean for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That will be very useful. So we no longer should say a sunscreen that you like using is a safe sunscreen. I think we should all move on from that statement, which all of us probably used at some point.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Talk a couple of more questions on sunscreen. One is about, can we eat our sunscreen?
Okay. The internal sunscreen concept.
Oral sunscreen.
Yeah. I do believe that oral sunscreens are game changers when it comes to specific ways, typically about the hyaluronate synthase. That being upregulated is not something that applications alone will do. Again, keeping the matrix metalloproteinases down, that is also something that will be difficult for topical sunscreens alone to do. So therefore, we definitely have an internal route. A good protein diet is also an internal sunscreen. As is anything that's rich in antioxidants. Any of the vitamin A, C, E groups will somehow work to prevent UV-induced damage. So then we're not talking so much in terms of internal or oral sunscreens as pills alone, but where it helps is to have a concentrated, measurable form. For example, for me, it's pycnogenol. When I talk about it, I usually say that, okay, this has been tested in X amount of women who are exposed to pollution-induced pigmentation, and therefore we see this benefit. Or the newer indication for marine collagen causing protection against UV damage. It's just the measurability of it. Even somebody had done a study on almonds, but you had to take 40 almonds to achieve that effect, which is possible if you're doing a nut-based diet where they give you like meal replacement. But it's not practical on a day-to-day basis. Pomegranate extracts or pomegranates for that matter. Right. So you can get amla. You can get a whole lot of these to behave as internal sunscreens or oral sunscreens. But where the pills really help us is to make it more measurable, saying like, okay, here is your dose and this is what we will expect to see, because that's what the studies give us.
Right.
compared to how food gets absorbed.
So should one take oral sunscreen on a daily basis, or you ask them to restrict it when they have vacation, where they have a lot more sun exposure than usual?
Yeah. So, for example, if you look at stuff like astaxanthin and resveratrol, these are also very good internal sunscreens, but we generally don't ask for them to be taken for a long duration because it's not that much data. But when it comes to pycnogenol, or when it comes to something a little less potent, maybe say like vitamin C, it's okay to take it long term. Vitamin C has a pro-oxidant story to it, but for example, for pycnogenol, as of now, there is a long-term data safety in terms of say about some 5 to 6 years even. So then those would be something that you can take daily. So even if you want to take it daily, it is about what you want to take. So maybe you take about 60-70% dependence on supplements per se, and then about 30-40% from diet. Or the more that you do in diet, you can reduce the proportion in supplements. So I would usually be somebody that takes it very regularly, and may step up before a holiday or a vacation, or when I anticipate extra exposure, or when I'm exposed to a lot of lights. So that's typically sometime when I would step up. Like morning's dose for me was 100 milligrams compared to my usual 50 milligrams, because I know that there is a lot of outdoors today. And for somebody that has issues with sun, melasma, then I'm like, okay, here is where I go. But if you are looking at something like vitamin C, vitamin E long term, mild pro-oxidant possibilities are there. So then you do it intermittently.
So like how much time would it take for these oral sunscreens to kick in?
So if you, maybe because I go back to pycnogenol because I kind of know how the pharmacokinetics and dynamics are, it usually takes about 4 to 5 days to get into a steady polyphenol level, which is protective enough. I think even with vitamin C, it reaches it. You start measuring levels in the blood which are compatible with UV protection fairly in about like a week or two. I usually say before vacation start 1 to 2 weeks prior. So that should be good enough.
This is why I was asking, because a lot of people still think you can take your oral sunscreen the day on the day of your vacation. So it has to start at least a week before.
A week, 10 days before.
And then you can stop taking it once you're back from your vacation.
1 to 2 weeks after, because you still have this long-lasting pigmentation, persistent pigmentation. So it helps to reduce. What helps more is, if you want to get rid of a tan line, cover that area up after you're back from vacation.
Right.
Preventing ongoing stimulation helps.
Is also useful. Because why I'm asking you if they can take it on a daily basis is because everybody is on supplementation. They want to take everything that they hear and see on the internet. So there are times patients come taking like 10 to 12 ingredients in their daily supplementation. Vitamin C, glutathione, astaxanthin, omega-3s and flaxseed supplements. A lot of things are going on. So when you're taking so many supplements, you have to at least prioritize. So I don't think oral sunscreen is one of the things that is to be on the top of your list unless you have a constant or regular sun exposure, severe direct sun exposure, or you're on vacation. Am I right there?
Yes and no. For me, it's oral sunscreen because for me, the thing is pigmentation. So then I would typically use supplements. Even Asta has protection across multiple domains. Spirulina has protection across multiple domains. Pycnogenol has protection up to cognitive health. So I would look at what all I can get from one antioxidant instead of saying like I will take only this. That's why I prefer pycnogenol over polypodium.
Because
so I would like to look at. I would hopefully like to keep my wits about me as I grow older. So that is something that I would see. And even vitamin C, it's not just skin protective. It's useful for a number of other indications as well. So I wouldn't restrict their domain to saying like, oh, you play only here. Like they are good here, and that's why it's important to pick up. Sometimes I hear things like this exotic extracts which work for one indication. That is not something I would typically take because for me that doesn't make sense. I will only put this much into my body and it has to do so much work. Like I multitask, therefore stuff around me multitask.
Multifunctional products, multifunctional supplements, I think is the way to go.
There's only so much that I will do. True. There's no time.
Absolutely. So next, what is your take on various forms of sunscreen applications? We have sunscreen sticks, sunscreen sprays, and what else do we have?
Wipes,
yeah. What is this concept of sunscreen wipes?
You want it on or you want it off? You really just spray and tap it on. How does it work?
So your take on other forms
the new interesting one is the mist.
Sunscreen mist.
Why
Yes,
would you do something like that? Why would you essentially take something that has inhalation and toxicity and spray it on your face?
Stay away from body sprays. Like we tell them when you're spraying it on your body, like look away.
Look
and
away.
Don't inhale. And then you're talking about
And then how do you know how much lands
Measure.
on your skin? Sunscreen is a quantity dependent performance product. It's not a feel good body mist.
Yeah.
You know, whatever clings on. You really need to know how much is on you.
Yeah.
Why would it why would it not occur to people? Because I get sent these forwards and say, oh, is this a new thing? No, this is not a new thing. This is a new dumb thing.
Dumb thing. Exactly. Add that thing.
Yeah. That's there. So sprays, no.
Sprays, no.
Sprays,
Wipes.
absolutely no. I don't. The really nice aerosolized sprays, the whole pump mechanism itself is not eco-friendly.
Yeah.
So that from there to the part that at the end of in the EU report, at the end of everything, it will talk about, titanium was classified as a carcinogen. And then they brought it back saying like, okay, it's not a carcinogen if you use it in a particular way, and spray is not one of them.
Okay.
So you really do not want to be putting titanium sprays because it's not metabolized by our lung epithelium the way that we thought it did. I know it's a food supplement, so then there is, but what they have put out in when saying like, okay, it's potentially not a carcinogen if you use it this way. So that if you use it this way is very, very important. That's there. Sticks are not my favorite, primarily because you need a lot of wax. Otherwise, it doesn't help for the structure, which is occlusive not for our humidity. With sticks, it's very difficult to get. We call this a payload. You don't know how much is being deposited on the skin.
Yes. There's no measure again.
Yeah, and because sticks, if you put a lot of mineral filters in a stick, it will crumble. So most sticks will end up being completely anhydrous in wax, which is very uncomfortable to use, or they'll end up becoming fully chemical filters, the older chemical filters, because you really want fine molecules in them.
Yeah.
So for me, sticks
And also
don't
like as according to the AED, it says 4 swipes up and down to get that quantity, and
you can't quantify
you can't
it.
quantify, and it's just too much to even like you just feel like you've
Yeah,
slathered wax on your
and
face
drop it on the beach and you're done.
Exactly. So so the best forms of sunscreen are your sunscreen
Creams, lotions, gels, anything that is measurable.
Yeah.
Because that's how they have been tested. So it's good to stick with something that's specifically tested to work in a particular way. Yeah.
So no to sunscreen sticks, sunscreen wipes, sunscreen mists are no.
No.
Body lotion sprays are still doable.
Sprays,
if you can. But again, measuring that is also difficult. No, how
No,
much
sprays, I think you can to some extent. Sometimes they put the pump numbers
correct.
in there.
Whatever is numbered.
For me, it's more about,
Inhalation.
I really don't want to expose myself unnecessarily, and I really don't want to, it's wastage for me.
Yeah.
Product wastage, which again goes out into the environment. So that's about it.
Yeah.
But people like it because it's easy to use.
It's easy to use
I'm now with the pump there. Earlier we didn't have the pumps.
Yes.
Now with pumps there, I think most people are switching back. Most companies are switching back to pumps. So.
So now, Doc, there's a lot of increased use of gadgets, smartphones, and a lot of work from home. And every profession is also moving on to using gadgets, right? So with increased visible light, what do you say on this subject, like with sunscreens and visible light protection? Because now we say sunscreen should also be used indoors because the UV rays is penetrating. But other than UV rays, we also have visible light that is attacking us. So how will sunscreen help us? Will sunscreens actually help us protect? And should we look at any specific labeling on these sunscreens for visible light?
Of course.
Yeah.
So visible light, still the largest component comes from the sun. That said, I forget the expansion. It's called EDGL, emitted light. I forget, device generated light.
Okay.
So then that's like the device generated light is one domain, much like the HEVL. So then that again has been associated, that's been proposed as a way that worsens pigmentation, especially conditions that are difficult to treat like melasma. So there is enough contribution again from the blue component. It should still be the HEVL component within this device generated light as well. So by way of working on our opsin receptors and by way of working on our oxidation pathway, oxidation potential, these definitely do have a role. Sunscreens can be boosted with antioxidants to cover the spectrum. So
and any particular labeling to check? Yeah,
HEVL protection is still okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people still love Korean, Japanese sunscreens because it's aesthetically more acceptable.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Are they designed to work on skin of color?
Okay. In terms of the ingredients, the thing about sunscreen is as long as the performance is measurable, I think it's okay. What I don't agree with is the number of ingredients. Enough studies to say that X number of ingredients, the more the number of ingredients, the more the risk in terms of long-term, either in terms of bioaccumulation or in terms of oxidation potential or outright endocrine disruption or skin sensitization. So there's data that's coming in saying like minimize the amount of things that you are exposed to either in one product or in multiple products. Overall, you want to use less things.
Correct.
And you want to use the least amount possible. So with the formulation type that is there in Korean sunscreens, for example, the number of ingredients is a lot. We recently published data saying that the allergen number is proportionate to the ingredient number. So the more the number of ingredients, so that may be one other thing on the label to see, like look for less number of ingredients, because then you add a lot more. Another thing is we need to make up our mind. Are we looking for these ingredients to be absorbed? Or are we looking for a sunscreen to be left on the skin?
Yeah.
So if you're not working on absorption of an exotic, the next best thing ingredient, why not put it in onto your skin in the evening when it has a better chance of getting absorbed?
Correct.
Why complex with something that you don't want to be absorbed?
Right.
Plus, in the day, the traffic is out. So you don't absorb as much as you do in the evening. So if you want to absorb an ingredient, use
Put
it
it
in
at
the
night.
evening routine. Why do you put it in a sunscreen where your chances of absorption are plus minus? Why do you just add to the body burden? So that for that reason, for the formulation story, I do not like too many things. I always have a soft corner for Japanese products because they make a lot of new stuff. Korea is more about selling that new stuff. So I would say overall, if the ingredients are less, and I guess it's okay, but otherwise, yeah.
But otherwise, I don't think there is anything to do with skin of color or a Caucasian skin.
Filter works. Zinc has to be there.
Yeah.
UVA protection has to be there, and I think that's pretty much.
Yeah. Filters are. Can we safely say that filters are color neutral or ethnicity neutral?
Filters will be either UVA or UVB.
That's what. It's
filters are UV. They are not applicable across. So if it is not UVA, you will still get some. You will still get the SPF number, but you won't get protection for skin of color. So for skin of color, it has to be PA factor based.
Right.
That's the criteria. That's the criteria. Yeah.
So the next most controversial topic and also most intriguing subject as of now is collagen. Right? Should we take collagen? Shouldn't we take collagen? Is it getting absorbed, or are we again overselling collagen? So as someone who is also into formulating collagen drinks, can you please tell us why? So first, what does collagen do? When does it start degrading? And when should one get on to collagen supplements, if at all they should?
Okay. So like we discussed, the mainstay of looking healthy, looking younger for longer starts with sleep, physical activity, diet, and then whatever skincare, hair care.
Are you putting diet to the third number? Like your sleep, I understand. So you're prioritizing exercise over diet. Is it after a certain age you're saying this, or for everybody?
I think the insulin resistance decides what diet you'll have. From an operational point of view, sleep decides what you're able to do.
Yeah.
So if you sleep well, then you are also finding your time managing better. So your sleep decides what you're able to do. So that's when I put as an algorithm or as like a matrix, that decides how much time you will give for your workout. And the insulin resistance decides what you're able to eat. Based on this framework, you decide what you have to do in terms of skincare, hair care, supplements, the frills. Right? Okay. So for me, it starts that way. Just as a heuristic to understand that if you sleep right, then you will be able to find time for the body to take care of it. And then depending on, maybe it may be okay for you to have that extra sugar if your HbA1c is otherwise controlled. In moderation. So at times. So then
a lot of ifs and buts attached to that.
Exactly.
So
then that's the heuristic for me. Yeah. So when it comes to collagen, there is a definite collagen degradation as we grow older. That is how we are built. That is how we were built to age.
Yes.
That's how we see changes like fine lines and wrinkles. But also the newer thing is that if the dermis is happy, then the epidermis stays happy. So even from a pigmentation point of view, it's inside out. The dermis has to be happy. And because the dermis is only predominantly collagen plus other structural proteins, it makes sense to keep the collagen happy. That's why we do collagen induction studies, collagen induction therapies. During our procedures. We're always talking about how do you get collagen.
How do we keep boosting your collagen?
Keep the collagen happy. Because what happens is when collagen breakdown happens, the breakdown products stimulate neighboring collagen to also break down. They go rogue, basically. So you want to be having mostly good people out there. So how do we know collagen supplements work? It's primarily from real human studies that say we looked for XYZ parameters which are skin specific. Say for example, we looked at hydration, we looked at sun-induced pigmentation, we looked at UV damage. We look at specific skin relatable outcomes. We don't say things like, okay, you will look good, you will feel better. No, we look at dermatological endpoints. And if the supplement satisfies those, then we say, okay, this potentially works.
Right.
There are mechanisms wherein the fibroblasts call out, and therefore the collagen production has been found to be pro-collagen increase has been documented in histopathology and all of that. So then you really look for factors that make sense to you and me as we practice.
Right.
So that's why I feel collagen works. Will collagen work if you are otherwise having a higher glycemic index food? Will collagen work if you're also smoking like a chimney? Will collagen work if your protein intake is terrible? No, it has to be everything. Will collagen work the same way if you slept terrible? So then it is dependent on a lot of factors.
Right.
It will not be that, okay, we had fever, we took paracetamol and the fever came down. It is not the linear relationship. Correct. It is not the linear relationship that you have when you say, for example, you applied a lipstick and you saw color. That is I did this, I saw this. Yeah. That's very easy to understand. That's super linear. So the idea would be to try and use collagen as one of the building blocks. I use it typically where I see that there has to be a long-term anti-aging strategy, or I see it when it is post-procedure. I would typically use it in circumstances where I see that there has to be an increase in tensile strength of the hair. So then for me, it always ties back to what will I see? So if there is a real benefit that we see, then yes. But if somebody is too young in terms of, say, they still have the skeletal remodeling that contributes to collagen generation. So why do we have that increase initially? Because we are growing, and the skeletal stretch also promotes synthesis. Stretch promotes synthesis, not the facial yoga.
That's a different
not the
topic
manual
altogether.
stretch, because it's a consistent stretch that happens when the skeleton is growing. So then everything is growing, but then after that point in time, we also undergo resorption. So I look at it in terms of it's a block. You need to have good vitamin D levels. You need to have good protein levels. You need to take it easy on sugars which break collagen down. Potentially take it easy on stress which breaks collagen down. Sleep deprivation also. So then for me it is a holistic thing, because there's a good bit of data, and it is also something that is possibly used for centuries now. We've been subsisting on fish.
Yes.
And it also appeals to me that the collagen that we source is from the fish industry waste. So for me it's upcycling also. So it's a macro that comes from upcycling. So it makes circular economy sense in general. But if somebody were to be able to eat, somebody were to be able to consume bone broth regularly, then they may not need the collagen.
Right.
And that's also been done. So for somebody that's time poor, therefore the supplement.
So you're saying collagen supplements do work?
They do work. There's data. So there's published data to show that collagen supplements work, and therefore we say it works.
Again, can you help us read the label of a collagen powder?
Okay.
Because now, see, no matter how much we say, please consult your dermat or consult your physician and take these supplements, not many people are listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can understand also that they're very experimental. They want to keep trying something new and they think it is safe. So just to make it more safer for them, what are the supplements that I should be taking when it comes to collagen? Help me read the label.
Okay. We look at three things. The first thing is the format. If it is a tablet, it's going to contain very little amounts of collagen because there's only so much you can load. Yeah. So for me, collagen tablets are out unless somebody is willing to consume 5 to 10 to 15 tablets. So that's
So
fine.
it's, yeah.
The second thing for me is also about looking at the label to see if there is a specific collagen type 1 listed as an ingredient. It used to be the fashion to put out collagen boosters, collagen and boosters in smaller lettering to say that, kind of mislead people saying it's completely vegan, because there are agents that boost collagen. There are real vegan collagen boosters, but they're not the same. They are nowhere near the same. So then the idea would be to try and look at the ingredient list to say, in the label, does it say collagen type 1?
Type 1.
Then look at the source. Most collagen, unless it's specifically mentioned as marine, is bovine. If it's okay for your religious sensibilities, it's okay.
It's okay.
And some of them, if you buy them abroad, would be from pig sources.
Yeah.
So if it's okay for your religious sensibilities, that's also okay. But by and large, if you're thinking that I don't want to have beef or pork, then I'm okay with fish. Then, and that's typically most of India.
Most Indians, yeah.
Then I think that would be the fish collagen. So you specifically look for marine collagen. Now in this, you can have all kinds of grades. So generally, I prefer to go with what is research published because it adds a lot of safety cushion to it. So then you look for to see if there is research grade. That's a claim that is mentioned saying like, okay, this is such and such a grade, or sometimes you'll be able to see the parent organization also. So it's traceable to source.
Okay.
Then you will have other labels like sustainably sourced. Then you will have some information on if it is farmed fish or wild caught fish. Then you'll have one bit of information which is mercury-free collagen.
Mercury-free collagen, yeah.
That's very important because collagen is not so much a problem by itself because it's just fish. It's just something that we've always consumed. But it's the additives. The third part of the label is I do not like any additives with collagen other than collagen, maybe vitamin C. I do not like a whole lot of plant extracts. You see the Garcinia extracts with collagen, and those are the ones associated with complications and stuff. I do not want anything that is not food to be mentioned as, you can take 1 or 2 scoops of this. It's a macro.
Yeah.
And it will still be okay. I would not want a lot of additives in it, not a lot of flavors, just other micronutrients, so many extracts. Because I have to now look at the safety for everything.
Yeah.
For me, type 1 collagen, yes, safe. I can certify this. It's safe. You can look at the certifications. Now that I can certify it, I can look at to say if it is certified, and that's enough. But if I have to look at X number of extracts, then I need to know how do they interact with collagen, then I have to have some data on that, if this particular combination works or if it is counterproductive. So for me, the least ingredient
The
part
simpler
works.
it is, the better it is. But now it is also becoming very complex because everybody wants everything to be multifunctional.
Yes.
I'll take this one collagen powder that will do this to me.
Yeah.
So that's why they are ending up putting a lot more things and complicating simple stuff.
Yes.
So, but then when you're saying I don't want additives, I don't want all this, how are you going to mask the smell that comes with? I think one of the other pain point with collagen powders is the smell.
Yeah.
That's why many people are not able to be consistent with it. So how do you mask the smell when it comes to collagen?
See, when I say I don't want additives which are a different kind of active, I'm okay with any kind of food-based additives. You need, of course, there needs to be definitely a masking agent. Fair point on that. It stinks to the skies if you were to just give raw collagen and you just can't mix it with water at all. It immediately makes you feel like you are marinating with the fish, so for sure.
I was left feeling pukish for hours after I tried one brand's collagen. Owing to my profession, we do a lot of things. I'm telling you, Doc, and we put ourselves at so much of risk.
No, that is real. That is for sure.
So how do we?
The first time that it came in, I'm like, okay, no additives, zero additives. People, we're just marketing it as it is. We're just going to just take it to people, and they said, if you survive after this tasting, right now it is possible to use fruit-based extracts, or something to mask. What I mean is, for example, if I'm going to put, let's say, an extract like an acerola extract, or if I put Garcinia extract, I wouldn't. But if somebody's putting Garcinia extract, how long? What's the safety data? What about the monitoring that needs to be done? So those kind of things. Or if I'm putting something that's officially called a herbal extract, which can also help you lose weight,
it's the worst.
that is not on.
Understood.
But if you have data on all of the ingredients, and if you're able to control the safety for everything, then it makes sense. For example, if you have a liquid shot, I don't like it for two reasons. Liquid shots usually come with their own plastic containers, which are way more damaging than sachets, even way more damaging than any other container. And then if you have a liquid extract, it means that you're also having to put enough preservative, because in liquids you will use more preservatives, more masking agents, more coloring agents. So for me, those are the simple things to avoid. I mean, I want my collagen. If I can get it in bone broth, that will be my easiest option to look at. But if I can't get it in bone broth, then I'm going to take a supplement which is similar.
So let's just, to summarize, when we talk about collagen supplementation, what is the best form of collagen supplementation? You're saying the powder.
For me,
so the best form is the powder form. In the labeling, you're asking us to look for type 1 collagen. If you have no religious preferences, you can go with bovine,
porcine, or fish.
Or fish. If otherwise, the most used form in India is a marine collagen. You can look at food additives to mask the smell, but don't make the formulation too complicated.
Exactly.
Look at a product that has simple formulation.
Exactly.
Avoid liquid forms, avoid capsule forms as much as possible, because they're not giving you enough.
Yeah, the tablet ones,
Yeah. So that's about the collagen. But what are the natural ways of boosting collagen? You said bone broth is one. Any other natural ways of boosting?
Bone broth is the closest one. That's what we've used. Like we have traditional cooking has also used gelatin. Those are the natural ways, because this particular protein, the collagen protein, is only like, it's an animal protein, and then this is how it is. There are few new plant-based, or no, I wouldn't say plant-based. Those are plant-grown, plant-derived, like a bioengineered. It's coming in, but we still do not have data on human studies and safety. So maybe in the next 4 to 5 years, we'll need to see, because they will end up having to be genetically modified at source, because that's how they are. They are made out of genetic modifications. We just need to wait on all of these and see if they are safer. So there is no plant-based at this point. Outside of that, certain diets like carrots can help, pomegranates can help. Pomegranates and mushrooms can help. So then there's grapes can help, almonds. The things that we say are sensible foods.
Yeah.
Many of them will have collagen boosting effects. On the contrary, cutting back on sugar can help. So that is a huge difference.
But also the problem when we talk about mushrooms or grapes is the highest pesticide, content that
grapes
are at the top.
Yeah, I guess that's. So it's going to be very difficult in the future for us to be able to see this is safe or that is not safe.
Yeah.
Either we border on fear mongering, or we border on devil may care. So we are going to have to find a happy medium, if at all that exists. And that is why I'm so fascinated by exposome research.
Yeah.
I would like to know for my body how much is enough.
Yeah.
I would love for that science to evolve more. I think it's also going to be like a lot in the future of dermatology to like this far and no further. I would love to know that and say, okay, here is what it is.
Yeah. It's very interesting, because right now, whatever end that you've spoken about, either extremes are very scary. Like you fear monger and you're very scared to even touch anything. I've stopped eating grapes. I don't know when did I eat. I ate grapes just 2 days back, because that came from somebody's farm. But otherwise, I don't know when was the last time I ate grapes.
Okay, I'm a grape addict, so I'm starting to get scared at this point.
And then the other side is also devil scare is again like
yeah.
So there are a lot of vegetables, and my milk comes from my farm. If we are consuming the curd or milk, it is from the farm. And when we are traveling, I don't. So there are some things that I'm actually scared of also, because
I can see the response.
So the medium, the happy midway, I think is something that we are all waiting to.
Yeah.
And I'm also scared that one day food is in the form of capsule or powders. We are all getting there already, I feel.
Yeah. We live the astronaut life.
Seriously, I think it's getting there very soon. I think kids will not be able to enjoy the foods that we enjoyed as kids.
I'm not a foodie, so I'm okay with the capsule life.
I'm also okay with the capsule life. Honestly
It'll
speaking,
save time.
It'll save time, and you're getting the nutrition without breaking your head whether this is safe, not safe, microplastic, antibiotics, blah blah. It's just so scary. I think I'm okay with the capsule life as long as we're like not putting anything unknown.
And then
in
they'll
the body.
come home. The kids will come home and ask us for ice cream.
Imagine. So Doctor. Practices that will help you boost collagen quickly.
5 practices. Okay, not so much as food, but sleep.
Okay.
Sleep deprivation does break down collagen by upregulating the matrix metalloproteinases, the bad enzymes in our skin. So that's there. The second thing is exposure to sun. That is like the big factor. So that, and also light.
Yeah.
Even visible light, unfortunately, is becoming implicated. So that's there. The third thing is to have a low sugar diet, because that increases at the AG, the advanced glycation end products in the skin. So that's going to be a little bit of a trouble. Over processed food, grilled food, over processed food can also create trouble. And then, of course, what we call as the internal exposome, like smoking, breaks down collagen very rapidly. So yes, these should be avoided.
These are the 5 things that can break your collagen down. And 5 things that can up your collagen. 1, foods you've already mentioned.
Yep.
Any other natural practices that can boost collagen?
See, in terms of the counterpoint of stress relief, there have been some studies. I'm not sure if I can quote them as a large evidence, as a large body of evidence, but there are some studies that show that mindfulness, meditation can slow down the bad enzyme behavior and therefore contribute to better collagen. Any polyphenol supplementation helps.
Okay.
The safest way, like you look for pesticide-free grapes, I look for oral supplements like pycnogenol. Any polyphenol helps. Maintaining adequate protein in diet helps. Also, physical fitness, reduced insulin resistance also helps. So that's very important. So therefore, strength training over and above just cardio, that's important. And not overdoing procedural treatments, not overdoing skincare by way of reducing oxidation, or not doing the wrong kind of skincare, like putting on oxidizable vitamin C in the morning routine. Just that basic, I shall not do these basic mistakes kind of a thing also helps. And water. Adequate intake of water. Yeah.
Collagen creams. Quickly, do they work? Do they don't work?
They may work if they are formulated well to the smallest size.
But I don't think there's any largely available collagen creams that are effective in the market currently.
The thing about it is, if we decide to work with marine collagen, because the other ones are not culturally acceptable, the marine ones, they tend to smell.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to, then you have to add something to mask it. So it's just that conundrum, but I think it may be possible.
But not right now. We don't have any effective collagen cream.
I do not know that I do not know specific brands that are available in India, but I do know that published research is available on prototypes.
Yeah. So why I'm asking this so much is because there's a lot of marketing going around collagen creams, and a lot of people are buying them left, right, and center. Yeah. So the prototypes might be still there, and then they're in the making, but not as yet.
I've not come across anything as impressive.
Yeah. So if you see there is a collagen cream that smells good, feels good for 200-300 rupees, please don't buy.
Oh, okay. That is not happening. Yeah. That is not happening.
So one last thing with collagen is, how do I know if this collagen powder is working for me or not? Because let's be honest, it's going to take time for you to see or feel the results, right, Doc? So for how long should I be taking a collagen powder for me to see and feel the difference? And what is it that I can look for?
Okay. Most of the studies are around 12 weeks. So minimum 3 months is what we should be ideally looking at. Beyond that, I think 24 months is where people start seeing and feeling very comfortable with collagen. So then at least 8 to 12 weeks is where we recommend in general. That said, along with good sleep and a whole lot of other factors, I think it can be a judicious addition to what you have figured out for your longevity protocol.
Right.
For me, it's something that I would typically use as one of the pillars, because I have a certain way that I want to, or that I want to grow old, but I also want to feel comfortable, feel healthy, look as healthy as possible. So then for me, it makes sense to have one pillar as collagen, one pillar as strength training, one pillar as supplements that are multitasking. So then it depends upon what aesthetic each person is playing for. For some, it could be a nut-based diet.
Right.
What is you? What is your aesthetic? Or what is your sensibility rather? More than aesthetic, what's your sensibility? So then if you're somebody that ascribes to a particular sensibility, or if we see that, here is how I will grow older, then collagen may be one of the tools you would like to explore. But if you can get it in diet, it's not that the supplement beats the diet. Where you can't where you can't get it in diet, yes, of course, you take the supplement.
So what are the common things that people experience after taking collagen for 3 months? Say, I usually hear or experience that your hair is a little bit more stronger, it's more shinier, and your skin feels a little more firmer.
Yes.
But you also see visible improvement with fine lines. Do you think there's a glow on the skin that starts to kick in?
Hydration is the first thing that we generally see. Especially earlier, I wouldn't think much about hydration because we're in the south of India, which is like a fairly humid place among the countries in the world. But if you see that most of us are spending our time in air-conditioned environments, exposed to a lot of light, so the hydration factor is something that I generally tend to see much earlier. Without air conditioning, we wouldn't need as much moisturizing. But then, right now, in the last decade, the need for moisturization has just gone up a lot. So that's one thing I typically see. The other one is a little bit of firmness and a lifting. But mostly people also talk about skin reflectance and radiance. The skin feels calmer. And I definitely do recommend collagen supplements, at least in the initial few periods that we start out on hair loss treatment protocols to give that tensile strength to the hair. But I also feel, like I said, it needs to be understood that this is one of the tools that we use. But I would call it similar to PRP. PRP it's not magic. It's one of the tools we use. Collagen is one of the tools we use.
It can be, it blends well with many other things that you're doing. Doc, I have 2 more very important topics to be covered, but with the time constraint, I don't know how much of this we'll be able to cover, but at least let's just touch upon this because we cannot not talk about PICO lasers with you in the podcast, right? And we also have to be talking about your fascinating entrepreneurial journey into curating a skincare brand that's doing really well. Right? So we'll quickly touch upon these topics and maybe we'll have to call you back for a second episode to deep dive into these topics.
I would love to do that because I think I think there's a quality about hosting where you really want me to speak more and more. And I'm thinking that the entire crew is going to think about like, how are we going to get this into one? How are we going to edit this?
They don't have to edit. They just have to put out everything as is and everybody wants to know this information firsthand from you. So
happy to
be doing great. So let's quickly, the segment is deep dive into PICO, but I think we can't deep dive. So tell me quickly about, so Q-switch laser is one of the most commonly used lasers and one of the most amazing technologies that we have in our practice. But there are still a lot of people who feel that Q-switch is better than PICO. There's this thing that PICO is better than Q-switch. So what is your take on this? When is a Q-switch enough or sufficient and when does PICO?
When is it required? So I look at pigmentation as 2 parts. One is where you have a dynamic pigmentation, typically like melasma, where you have some damage going on. Now, from melasma starting point, everybody is now talking about how it is all about photo damage, right? So then you have something that's going on, and photo damage is not something that you can stop because it's, you can't keep people away from the sun. So then that's something.
Gadgets now, more than the sun. Gadgets. People are like now, like shade-seeking behavior has improved a lot.
Of course.
But gadgets.
Of course. You're absolutely right. So it's not something. Okay, it's not when you talk about light. It's not something that we can forever take out. So in that case, it becomes dynamic pigmentation. So I'm not dealing with what pigmentation they have now, but I'm also dealing with what they will acquire over a period of time.
Makes sense.
So for there, and it can be a very tricky situation. So many players, so many cells there, and Q-switched unfortunately can be too strong. That's why you read mostly about melasma getting worse after Q-switched. It's because the Q-switched, the thermal effect is also perceived as a trigger. Because photoacoustic effect, that will protect to a certain extent, but even there you have to do super low fluences. You can go wrong with PICO as much, but not as much with the nano, the Q-switched. Now, when it comes to pigmentation like post-acne, a QAG will do the job just fine. So when it comes to tattoos, if you have a lot of pigment load, QAG will be misunderstood. It will again become too hot, and so that's when you see the scarring. PICO is way better for tattoo. So it depends upon what is the indication, and then we can try to play around. So that kind of helps. In any pigmentation that you won't call as dynamic, that there's so much going on, it will typically be in anything that you call as dynamic with so much going on, it will typically be a PICO laser because we really want to reduce the thermal aspect of the photothermal effect.
So I'll tell you, because like I said, since we don't have enough time to go deep into this, I'll tell the concerns and you can tell me your favorite way of treating it, right? So we talk about melasma. It is mostly
PICO or LED?
LED.
Calm down.
Oh,
all
yeah,
the
the
way.
LEDs. So, but I think for me it is about chemical peels more than the lasers when it comes to melasma.
Yeah.
And if I have to pick up a laser, then it is PICO, is what you're saying?
So then the chemical peels or the exfoliation is very important because pigmentation can also be triggered by pollution.
Yes.
So you really want to take out that part, that aspect.
Yeah.
So with melasma, it's always like neither, we don't talk about this or that. We talk about everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
So we'll try our best to see, somehow get there. And if you get there somehow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So yes.
So when it comes to tattoos,
I would prefer PICO.
PICO over Q-switch.
Over Q-switch.
Yeah. And if you're talking about dark spot concerns, say like a PIH, solar lentigens, everything is with.
Yeah, solar lentigens. I think if you're going to go, if you're required to do a little bit more fine work, if you're likely to use the 532, then I would prefer the PICO. But if you're likely to use a very small spot size, then I guess you can just about manage with nanos. But if it comes to post acne spots, anything goes.
Anything goes. And other important concern is nevus of Ota, Ito. There are a lot of nevus concerns that we also deal when there is brown and bluish gray pigmentation.
You could go with the nano for the debulking and then maintain with PICO. I generally end up doing a lot more PICO primarily because the downtime is way lesser and I don't have any ghosting or scarring. So also because as a KOL from 2016, just having to do more and kind of make it more versatile for other PICO users. So I've kind of used that as my workhorse. I do have a nano, but for me it is primarily the PICO that does the bulk of the work.
Understood. So the side effects or after effects after this Q-switch or PICO, we also talk about hyperpigmentation, but most importantly hypopigmentation that can come
hardly with PICO.
But why do some people experience that post lasers? Because I see a lot of patients who say that they've gotten a Q-switch or a PICO laser elsewhere come with a lot of hypopigmentation spots. I know why, but I want you to tell me like what are the precautions one should take?
The confetti-like appearance can come from too much, too soon, too often. That's typically one problem that we see with QAG toning in general, especially when we use a setting which is about high frequency. You basically are not allowing the skin the time to, or if it's like I would call it like a loading or shocking of the pigment cells. So then they just give up.
Right.
Invariably very difficult to get that with PICO unless people are using too much too often.
Yeah.
For example, some of the protocols earlier, the Korean protocols used to be like every 3 days. And then they say, okay, then they started seeing white spots and they said, no, not for skin of color. So that was a earlier time. And now some of the equipments also don't have like a true PICO.
Yeah.
So you need the laser to deliver the energy in the PICO format itself. What happens sometimes is that they take it in the Q switched or the nano format and then it splices. So you may not get a reliable you may not get a reliable beam. Or you may not get reliable energy. That means that you are thinking that you're doing PICO, but you're delivering a standard nano QAG. Then you will misjudge the fluids.
Settings.
That is a possibility. But I mostly see that the most important thing about any laser is the person behind the laser.
Absolutely.
The device is a device. So then I feel that these complications of confetti or these complications of hypopigmentation happens when somebody is unable to pick up what's going on in this particular person's skin at that point in time. But PICO probably adds a lot of safety to it inbuilt because of the photoacoustic over photothermal effect.
But I think it adds safety only when you know how to use this workhorse. Because I see people using wrong settings, very high energy too frequently, like you said, and we see this confetti kind of spots. So now the scariest practice is that lasers are also available in salons. Yeah. So what are the things as audience people?
Yes, I saw the post that you shared.
You did? It really, I experienced that. You see how scary this is? So as general public, like what should they keep in mind when they want to get laser treatments done?
Don't even bother getting a laser treatment done with anybody other than a trained dermatologist. It is possible that certain devices, even in our clinics, are nurse practitioner handled, right? That said, there is still a protocol in place. There is
Yes.
also somebody that's guiding the treatment end to end. It is not the same just because the idea comes from people saying like, okay, here's a technician that's doing it. Oh, let's go do it in a parlor.
Yeah.
No, it's not that. That protocol has been set, verified, checked, and ongoing calibrations done.
Constantly, yeah.
Regularly audits are being done to make sure that people are having a safety factor there, because it is very possible to have burns from any laser. And it's very important to know how to get out of the complication, how to minimize the complication. So there's a lot going on when you see the nurse practitioner doing it, but you see there's a lot that's happened behind. Without this understanding, thinking that the doctor is not doing it, why not I get it done at a parlor? It doesn't make sense. You see the videos, I don't even know if they're being made for shock value. Somebody wants to get viral and they go ahead. You sit like,
Maybe
Yeah.
it could be that, because now everything is about getting that quick attention from the viewers. It could be that, but it is also a harsh reality that this is actually happening. So the next segment is you are a very silent. I think you do your work very silently without like a lot of taam-jam. But you are an amazing entrepreneur also. So as a founder of a skincare clinic, there also you are getting into entrepreneurship a little, because you're no more just a dermatologist. You have to also manage the clinic in a larger aspect. But entering into a skincare industry, like coming up with your own formulations and products, is a different ball game. A lot of times people think it is pretty much similar, but people don't understand that formulations is completely different from what we have studied as a dermatologist, right? So what made you choose, or what made you enter into this zone of becoming a skincare brand founder?
Super cliche, necessity is the mother of all invention.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I basically started out looking for a couple of products which would work with skin of color, especially because when PICO came, it's like more or less like a backstory is from PICO. When it came in, we really didn't have the protocol set for type 5, type 6 skin.
Right.
It came in without that setting at all. So then we had to find out what goes on after. And like in the last 10-15 years that fractional CO2 has come in, you have MNRF coming in. There's a lot of question on how do you take care of the post care, how do you work on the downtime? Because without downtime management, the clinic would not have been able to run effectively also. So I was looking at specific products in the post-procedure domain initially. Then came up the problem of topical steroid damaged face. I had one of my clients that actually came and said, I do not know how long it will take, because we were working with her with a whole lot of stuff, including oral medications and a whole lot of stuff. Said, I do not know what it takes for you to solve it, but you do. At that point, I did not find a single tranexamic acid which did not have sensitizers. We tried. And then we ended up creating something for her, which went on to become one of the flagship products. So for me, it has completely been necessity driven. I wanted to be able to provide an EDC free moisturizer for my family, one of my family members that had was undergoing chemotherapy, and that brought me into like, okay, I'm not even able to find something that's perfectly safe for her. And when we did the absorption study, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god,
is this what we've been putting on our skin?
And then we're faced with people who had difficult to treat conditions like LPP. Then you thought about, okay, what is that thing that is available? And for the largest part, I was just basically trying to source. Chosen initially was a marketplace. It was a curator's place. I was just getting everything from everywhere and only formulated that which I did not get. And over a period of time, as it opened up the choices, or as it opened up the opportunities to kind of, okay, if I can go into this material in zinc, then I can go into a place where here is an alternative that is ADC free, that is safe. So then I would only look at segments which did not have alternatives. Therefore, I was able to stay completely clear of trends. I did not feel the need to do a Me Too product, because if it's a good product, I would adopt it back then. But then over a period of time, as you start formulation and you see the other side of it, and you see, okay, there's so much more materials that can be so relevant to skin of color. But the idea is also to not get carried away with ingredients. We went with problems. Always went with problem solving, because when you sit in the clinic and you say, okay, I don't have something for this. For example, this year the pressure is on me for my consultants to work on the hair color. Not this year. It's been there for a couple of years. Because I always talk about, we were saying PPD is not safe. Then we said, okay, take PTD. PTD is now announced as the allergen of the year.
Allergen. See?
Then what next? How
Yeah.
long will I keep saying PTD is safe when it has already been announced that here is what it is? There is
now
this
what's the
pressure.
safest?
Now is the pressure to like, what do I do? What do I? And then now we're talking about sunscreens. We have 2 sunscreens. We tried, the third mineral is called cerium oxide. We did multiple tests, but it was like, we still haven't mastered a way how to bring that in. Now we are looking at completely what is like an upcycled ingredients. We're looking at plant melanin, for example. We're looking at a whole lot of alternative options. So for me, unless there is a problem to solve, there is really nothing to do in choosing. It is only that.
But how did the team come together? Like, how did your R&D come together? Because the thing is, I think you have a very robust R&D team, and you also have a very quirky marketing team. You remember, like, years back when you launched some products, I said, how unique is your packaging? How quirky is the marketing? It's very, very like, it's very catchy, the whole marketing. So how did this whole team come together?
The R&D part of it is like, we started with clinical dermatology. That's typically our strength, but we have close to some 6 to 8 people working together on the cosmetic chemistry part of it. I'm also certified in cosmetic chemistry because I wanted to know if they are actually giving me the correct data. Because or are they? Am I receiving a lot of BS?
BS, exactly. Unless you are the master, or at least know what's happening, they can BS you.
And that helped a lot, because we would only pick up stuff that is already data driven. Pycnogenol happened that way.
Yes.
We didn't want anything, but we wanted to just make sure that we have solid data behind us. And R&D over a period of time kind of grew with more clinicians rather putting their support into it. Lots of feedback. Here, Dr. Urmila,
yes,
she was the starting point for the Safe Screen season.
Oh, wonderful.
Because she said, this is what I want it to be. So then there is a lot of clinical feedback from early dermatologists that adopted it. So then that helped a lot. The marketing part, I think, is a lot community driven. We just went out, for example, the conclave that happened recently also. It was a lot about what people wanted and how it's got to be done. To be honest, I actually think that the marketing is really the smallest department. So
when the products are good, they speak for themselves.
That is a hope. But we also that has been the support, and people have taken it upon themselves to be advocates for the brand. That has supported us a lot. And now as we move more into the step down skincare and also the intra procedure skincare, now we are setting up a much larger. Hopefully this year or early next year we'll have the melanin lab out, which will be a collaborative project with a whole lot of dermatologists. And yes,
the lab is going to be in Chennai.
So it's going to be something like an experience unit where you actually are able to see at some level maybe how different products interact. So we wanted to be some amount of it to be system based, so you can check. The ingredient checker is the initial, just a basic approach to it, but we want to be able to see at what point vitamin C increase in percentage loses its charm. So those kind of questions, because you have a 15% and you have a 30%.
Yeah.
Those kind of basic questions. So yeah.
Understood. Wonderful. But again, is it going to be in Chennai? The experience center?
Potentially, yes.
Bangalore is a good place. You must come and I think explore option.
I'm beginning to love Bangalore. A good bit of the team sits here, so I'm beginning to love my frequent travels to Bangalore. Yes.
Bangalore. We should try getting her more frequently to Bangalore.
I love the space. This is such a positive space. I would love to hang out here
anytime. So, Doc, we're very intrigued to see how you maintain your skin and also work-life balance. A little bit of that will be in your bag. So let's see what's in your bag.
Okay. Right.
That's a very good-looking, beautiful, handy bag. I would say it's nice. It fits
functional.
Everything. It's functional. Yeah, that's the word. It's functional
to travel.
Yeah.
Got my phones.
Huh.
And I have notebooks because I write, and my Kindle.
We're still old school that way, I think. I also love writing. I always carry books in my bag.
I have sticky notes, because if I have extra ideas, then I put them over there. If I read a book and if I want to mark, then I have my sticky notes on it, so that's there. And oral sunscreen, of course.
Which one do you use?
Pycnogenol.
Pycnogenol?
50 milligrams.
50,
Now 211 for the summer. This is my stationery box.
Oh, just let me see that.
It's got a bit of eye makeup, then it's got a pencil, then it's got a pen, and it's got more sticky notes.
Oh yeah, this is so cute, yeah. I've never seen this size sticky notes. This
And
is
I
very
have an
cute.
eraser as well.
This is very cute, doc. This is Dr. Renita Rajan for you guys.
So the eraser is loaned from my daughter. So basically, I scribble on the books I read. At this time, I'm not carrying a book, but the Kindle makes up for that. I do have house keys, and that's basically it. And there's a moisturizer test that they have sent me to test in Bangalore, so that's there. That's it. House keys.
That's it.
That's it. I have a comb. I have a comb. And I have, I think I also have stuff because I came in with stuff with the suitcase itself. So this is typically my bag. Laptop is I'm not carrying it because I'm traveling, but that's pretty much it.
But it's so cute, yeah, your stationery pouch. Gosh. Okay, so now let's quickly get into our next fun segment. So this is the yes or no round, right? So, face yoga. No. Collagen creams.
How do I do?
Okay. Have you ever tried a trendy product just to see if it works or not?
All the time.
All the time. Have you ever thought, when a patient says you, I think this is increasing now, have you ever thought, this person needs therapy, not skincare? Have you ever been shocked to see how much someone was spending on their skincare and that's not working?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever had a patient whose skin completely transformed just by fixing their diet or sleep? Have you ever lied about liking a skincare product or a trend or an ingredient just to avoid the drama? Can you say which one now? Like, is it still an ongoing thing or can you talk about it?
Oh no, somebody recently was talking about how percentages matter. I tried explaining and then I'm like, okay, whatever.
Have you ever seen a celebrity skincare routine and cringed inside? Yeah?
Rare. Because I think they are among people that do very less. So I don't see the 10-step routines being followed for most celebrities. So extremely rare. I've seen people use topical steroids all over for, especially a couple of people that were like trying to start out and use topical steroids all over and come with striae all over the body. I wouldn't call them, like a celebrity problem. It's just that this is somebody that was just, a couple of movies and then ended up not doing more work.
Okay. Have you ever had a patient come in after using a DIY remedy that totally backfired?
Toothpaste, garlic. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, all the time.
So, Doc, there are a lot of more questions, but I know we don't have enough time. So, is there any closing statement?
Doc, actually, we're back to the trivia round again. So, we're going to ask both of you some questions
Okay.
today. So, I need your hands up like this because we're going to put a finger down, skincare edition.
Okay.
Put a finger down if you've tried a weird DIY skincare hack just to see if it works.
Of course. Professional hazards.
Put a finger down if you've recommended a product you didn't personally love.
Might suit other skin types. Not for us, but it might suit other skin types. So, you recommend, no?
But if you didn't love it for even other skin types, if you didn't like it, you didn't think it
like
was
that?
great.
No, obviously not. Yeah.
You might have gotten feedback from others also. So you personally love it, thinking that it's going to make a difference for them.
No.
Put a finger down if you've seen a product launch and thought this is just marketing nonsense. No elaborating on that.
I think we can put many fingers down
For that. But what are the terms in a marketing? What are the marketing terms that are BS?
No, the sunscreen mist. The sunscreen mist is just outright BS. So then you know that it's and sometimes when you see
organic, natural.
when you And anything you put a lot of chemicals in and say chemical free.
Chemical free. Huh.
It's just-
Okay. Put a finger down if you've ignored your own skincare advice because you were too tired or lazy.
Rare.
If you want to say what that is, for me it is hot water. I don't use it on my face, but we generally say avoid hot water, piping hot water. But sometimes I do that because that's my relaxation. This thing.
I skipped workout this week because I was traveling.
That even I did this week. I didn't
So-
because of my sinusitis. I couldn't work out. But yeah.
I think you like this one.
Huh.
Put a finger down if you've tested a product on yourself before recommending it and immediately regretted it.
We've done procedures. Forget
Procedure-
about products.
yeah, we've done
We've done
procedures.
procedures and walked around with the aftermath.
True.
Put a finger down if you bought a skincare product purely because the packaging was beautiful.
No.
Cosmetic products.
Yeah.
Lipsticks. Foundations.
Not really.
lipsticks. Yeah.
Well, you have one standing. That's
Congratulations.
Thank you. Because I think we are very reserved when it comes to buying skincare products. We hardly do because we are given
Yeah.
sometimes other than products that are not available in India,
Yeah.
we tend to not generally buy. So Doc,
I buy all kinds of packaging because I want to know how it works.
yeah, for you I think it's more of like again professional work related. So any closing statements, Doc?
Now, I've totally enjoyed coming here, being with you. I regret we couldn't give more time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that you're trying to do in terms of simplifying what the technical aspect is. And sometimes, when people like me tend to get carried away in like taking things to the molecular level, we need a voice that is actually simplifying the content and putting it out. And that is why this podcast is so important to demystify or to kind of make it accessible. The accessibility of skincare knowledge, and I think that's lacking. When we say, okay, so and so is doing, they're talking about skin without knowing anything about it. People like me are also at risk of being not accessible enough, not user friendly enough. So then there is the role where you say like, okay, I see where you're going with it, and I want it to be going to as many people, and here I am, the bridge, and that is a great. That takes a lot of magnanimity to come into that role. So I'm super impressed, and I'm grateful that you were doing it for all of us.
Thank you so much. But I'm telling you, this is a master class that I think it's just amazing. I was just learning a lot from you. There are only few people that I ask for more episodes, like because there is so much to extract from you. So we need another episode with you, and you have to promise me that you are giving it for us.
Of course.
So thank you so much, Doc, for such an insightful and elaborate deep dive into the most important topics. I know we are running short of time, so we have to cut this episode short, but we should do this again to touch upon the topics that we were supposed to cover and couldn't. So thank you so much. So that's this episode, guys. I hope the video was useful and informative. And if you liked and enjoyed the video, do subscribe to our channel and share the video with all your family and friends to stop the spread of misinformation, especially about sunscreens, because they are not the real demons. They're saving your skin. Until the next episode, yours holistically, Dr. Priyanka Reddy.